Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. This is an exciting day. I finally get to rank all 6 Resident Evil movies. I just finished reviewing all of them individually. You can check them out. I'll put the playlist up here. And this is quite the franchise. It starts off pretty great in my opinion, and as it goes through, you're really going on a big downslope in the quality. This particular franchise pisses off a lot of the video game fans as they stray pretty far away from the storyline the games went with and the atmosphere. You don't get the survival horror aspect, except for maybe in the first movie. Quite frankly, this was a pretty rough franchise to get all the way through. I'm glad it's finished, so let's just get right into this ranking. Coming in 6th place is Resident Evil Afterlife. Now this movie, I hate this movie ever since its release. It is pointless in my opinion. Nothing really happens. Alice goes from point A to point B to point C. Movie's over. You don't move forward and with plot. You get characters that I really don't enjoy. None of them. This is the only movie where there's no redeeming characters in my opinion. You bring back Claire, and she suffers from memory loss, and even by the end of the movie, she still doesn't remember everything. So you don't get to see her as we did in Extinction, which is a bummer. Franchise is continuing to add in video game characters just for the sake of it, just to hopefully to please some of them video game fans, but I don't think it worked. This is the one with probably the least horror aspects of them all. It focuses all on the action, and it's really over the top action that I don't care for at all. Some slow-mo scenes at the first with all the Alice clones, and it just doesn't work for me at all. All of the villains in this movie are just dumb and stupid. They freak out and shoot the person beside them just for asking a question, and really there's no motivation behind the characters at all. This movie also has video editing problems with the shower scene. I mentioned that in my review, how the water's running and then not and then running, but you hear it the whole time running. It's just bad editing. Well, this is just a plain bad movie in my opinion. It's very schlocky, and it deserves to never get a rewatch again from me. Coming in at 5th place is Resident Evil The Final Chapter. Now, this is also a pretty bad movie, but it gets a few tiny things more right than Afterlife. It's a little less boring. It really screws up with the whole storyline that they created with all these movies. This is the last movie, and it seems like they forgot completely about what they've written in the previous movies, especially Apocalypse, how it explains the virus has been created, and they change all that in this movie, which to me makes no sense unless you're making a remake, but this is obviously not. It's the final chapter. The plot moves just because of coincidences. Like you make it to the bad guy's place, he forgot to shut the door until you get there. It's all just coincidence why the plot moves forward. And that is all due to the writing. It's very bad script writing in this. The dialogue's pretty cheesy. The writings is very bad. It's a very cheap way to end your franchise. Like, even the emotional pull at the end that you're supposed to have when the revelation all about Alice and how she's really the Red Queen, it's all ruined because it feels like there was no effort put into this movie at all. The lighting's fairly bad. It's pretty dark in most spots, and the film relies on cheap jump scares to thrill their horror audience, which I think they fail miserably at. You only get one redeeming character, and that's in Dr. Isaac's clone, who is a religious cult nut, a leader with his tank, and that's pretty much the only part I enjoy about this movie. They had so much potential with this franchise, and they could have ended at least on a higher note, going back to the Hive with the original movie, but it's a complete fail in my book. Coming in 4th place, we got Resident Evil Retribution. Now, this one's a real mixed bag for me. It's not so much bad, it's this bad mixed with good. It's on an equal balance, pretty much. I think I gave this a 5.5 rating, so that just explains where I'm at. You get pretty cool simulation sequences throughout. You get Michelle Rodriguez back and a few other members from the first movie, which is a bonus. I love the character of Rain. You get some of the best hand-to-hand combat scenes, even though it's kind of watered down by the slow-mo. But the stunts are pretty well done. Probably the best in all the franchise. But what this film suffers from is character choices, like Wesker going on the good side against the Red Queen. Umbrella making Red Queen their head head of command pretty much, which you already know she's a psychopathic AI. Like, it's dumb decisions on Umbrella's half. You got Jill Valentine looking all sorts of weird, and definitely not as good as she was in Apocalypse. You got a bunch more shoe-in characters from the video games like Leon in them, and they feel completely wasted. So, like I said, this movie has a weird balance of good and bad, things I love and things I absolutely hate. And one thing I hate the most about this movie is the Russian simulation scene with the zombies with the guns. I forget what it's called, the Lost Plagueis virus or whatever the hell they have. And to me, that's just stupid when you see zombies running around on dirt bikes. It ruins any aspect of horror you were going for. Okay, moving into this top three, they're all decent enough movies. I gave them all a pass. So we're kind of out of the rut right now, but we're not getting really far out of it yet. So next up, I had a hard time placing number 3 and 2. They're pretty close on my scale, but coming in at number 3 is Resident Evil Extinction. Now this is the Mad Max one, I like to call it, because it's set in the desert. I actually love the location, the setting. I find it's really cool and different. It spices things up in this franchise, and it makes it really stand out among the rest. You got the cool homage to the birds with the crows, zombie crows coming in while they're infected. And that's a really cool scene. The characters are fairly well done. I like pretty much all of them. You get this caravan crew that's run by Claire and Carlos pretty much. Alice is probably on a telepathic level the craziest she's ever been with her powers. She's almost like Carrie at this point. But what gets me on this movie is this is where Umbrella's logic starts to flaw, because they let her go in the last movie for no reason. Now they can't even get her back, and knowing how powerful she was. So it's just little things like that holds this movie down a little bit. But I do fairly enjoy this movie, and I'll throw it in every couple of years for sure. So coming in second place is Resident Evil Apocalypse, the second movie in the franchise. And this was an okay sequel. It took a totally different direction than the original movie. It took it out of the claustrophobic survival setting and moved it into the more into the city, the Raccoon City, and you got to see the STARS police force and Umbrella Army up there too. And it made for a neat enough movie. I just feel that some of the effects aren't real good in this one. Like the look of Nemesis, his suit looks very cheap, and I find the zombies themselves, they have this weird like where it's like almost like slow-mo mixed with fast-mo blurriness when it shows the zombies in groups, and I just find that was a really poor decision. The CGI is a little better than the first with the lickers and that, but overall I feel like they're slowly moving into the more action phase of this franchise with number 2. But what really bothers me about Apocalypse is the ending, how they just let Alice go knowing how powerful she has become. They just finished doing more experiments on her and that, so they should have known, even though they were just planning on tracking her. But to me it was just foolish on their part, and they continue the foolishness throughout the franchise after this. This is where they really become dumb, Umbrella. So, coming in at number 1, we got the original Resident Evil movie from 2002. When this movie was released, I loved it so much. It was even creepy to me. I was only like 12 when it came out, so... And it's pretty much the only movie in this whole series that did that to me, probably because I was at such a young age. But I just loved the claustrophobic atmosphere, that you almost get that survival horror feel like you do in the games. It's not done as well as the games, but it's still there. I'm just a sucker for movies with Marines or soldiers going in a horror movie. They get picked off like a slasher almost. I just love it. I pretty much like all the characters in this movie. They're all great. The amnesia side of the story, the subplot, is done to perfection in my opinion, and it never gets mentioned enough in these reviews. You got Rain, the most badass character in this whole franchise, played by Michelle Rodriguez, and she does an amazing job. The only thing is this movie is a little cheesy. Like, some people won't like it because it's too campy for them. And the CGI is outdated quite a bit, being a 2002 movie, and it's very noticeable with the lickers and that one zombie that turns with his face half missing. But at the time it was great. I just feel like no other movie in this series captured the essence that this movie had, with the little bit of action, with the horror. it does everything better to me than any other movie in this series. And that's why it comes in at my number 1. So there you have it, guys. That's my take on this entire franchise. I'm all done with it for a while. I might come back to the animated. I think there's 3 or maybe more now animated movies of Resident Evil. I seen one back in the day, and it was pretty good. Well, I say back in the day, it might have been like 10 years ago, and it was pretty good. So I'll probably revisit that one and the other 2 and add them to this ranking, or just do a ranking on its own on the side. We'll see. But that's it for Resident Evil for now, and I can't wait to move on to bigger, better franchises. So I hope you enjoyed this ranking. Let me know how you rank the franchise down below in the comments. Make sure to like, subscribe, and just thanks for watching, guys.